I pulled into the empty parking lot on the cool spring afternoon. I had just spent 30 minutes explaining to my good friend Dan that after 9 months of exploring business schools, I didn't think the investment of time and money was for me, and that instead I should design my own. I put the car in a park and then began my long spiel about the problems and challenges that could arise. Family expectations, pressure from peers, financial hurdles, and so on. And in this tense moment, confusion and doubt swirling in the car, so much so that it's almost musty inside, Dan's only response was, "Oh, what a grand adventure." It was a bit of a puzzling moment for me. I mean, I just shared an audacious idea and my deepest fears, and he shed this entirely refreshing light upon it. Shortly thereafter, I resigned from a job I loved to design my own education. It would entail 12 projects around the world in 12 months, all centered around design, business, and social change. I called it the Leap Year Project. Now, I wrote a blog and a newsletter that my friends could subscribe to, some of which could even pitch in $10 a month to be a part of the journey and help give me a stipend throughout my travels. And I sourced the projects from companies and creative agencies around the world. This led me to a place like NBBJ, where I got to help create an installation for Microsoft's healthcare facility. And it led me over to Cairo, where I got to work with a nonprofit telling stories of change, positive change during the Arab Spring. And I got to spend time on Skid Row for Thanksgiving, helping organize Thanksgiving dinner for the families there. But it wasn't just me. I was able to spend time inviting other people to take risks of their own. There was all kinds of people saying, well, I wish I could have done something like you. It was a leap year, so I invited people to take leaps or risks to learn and to create change in their communities, and they shared stories. And by the end of 2012, we had created a book project that we funded on Kickstarter, and then I staged my graduation at a TEDx in Chicago. And it became my graduation. And then we finally started a school, which is a new kind of place for people who want to design their education, called Experience Institute. Now, at quick glance, this might look like a solo millennial vigilante project, kind of gone fairly well. Nothing could be further from the truth. That conversation with Dan was the first of a whole host of conversations. And I was beginning to learn that the more I shared my journey in a humble and thoughtful way, the more I learned and grew. Right after 2012, I met a friend named Eric at a holiday party. And it was during the time where I was trying to create Experience Institute, something that I was realizing was quite over my head. And during that conversation with Eric, he mentioned that he attended Stanford and he volunteered for the radio station and that he thought we should have a conversation on air, at which point I obliged. I was super excited to do that. And that conversation with Eric led to a meeting with the folks at the D.school who were working on a project called At Stanford, where they were examining what the future of the campus might look like. And they were taking apart 4 different parts of the campus. Things like accreditation and the future of the library and the future of residence life and the future of experiential learning. And it was so interesting. They didn't just tell me what they were doing, and they didn't just like push it on me, but they actually invited us to collaborate with them, to think with them. And over the next year, our first 5 students in them got to be a part of this really fantastic project. And for them, it culminated with a final project called Stanford 2025, which has 4 provocations to higher ed at large, and is now something that they're trying to continue exploring how it fits on their campus. And for us, it deepened our relationships, it gave us an understanding of what we're building and why it mattered, and it inspired us to continue doing the work we're doing. Look, I know sharing can almost be a sign of weakness in some contexts, but I really believe that the more you let go of the things you think you know and have, the more those things, those ideas and those relationships will strengthen. Now let me back up and give you a little bit of context about Experience Institute. It's a 12-month program that begins in September in Chicago. And students range from 18 to 39. They meet in Chicago for their first of 4 meetups throughout the year. And the meetups will last about 2 weeks long, and they include intensives and projects around 5 core competencies: self-awareness, storytelling, community building, operations, and human-centered design. Now, the time in between those meetups is a time where they get to design what they do next. And those meetups specifically are held all over the city. Now, we are starting a school, obviously, and most schools, when you look it up online, you'll look up a college and you'll see some beautiful campus. Well, we don't have a beautiful campus. We didn't spend the exorbitant funds that go into campuses. But we took a step back and said, well, what about Chicago? What if we thought about Chicago as a campus? Where would we meet? And so the meetups have been hosted all over the place, from co-working spaces to rock climbing gyms to furniture showrooms. And then for instructors, our instructors are only with us during those meetups, and then sometimes they're on coaching calls throughout the year, so they're able to have full-time jobs. They're all practitioners, and they're doing amazing work in their field, so we're getting to learn from them in kind of short bursts at a time. Now, like I said, the time in between, students are designing what they're doing. Now, some of them are pitching companies for apprenticeships and to be a part of a company's culture for 10 to 12 weeks. Not quite the 1-month stints that I was doing, a little bit different. Some of them are pursuing entrepreneurial projects. But in any case, people are giving them space to learn, to grow, and are in exchange sharing problems that they're trying to solve, or they're possibly sharing space, sharing teammates, and this creates a learning environment for both parties, for the company who has this kind of curious person in their space who's trying to help make things better, and then for the student who's trying to hone their skills, build their portfolio. Now, as they do this, they've done all kinds of various things. And it's taking this age-old idea of an internship and making it the core of their education. And we've kind of joked around how all of this together makes for some mix of like Harvard and The Amazing Race, just to give you kind of a picture of what we're doing. Now, they've done everything from award-winning sound design projects in Seattle to building typhoon-proof earthships in the Philippines. And beyond that, at this moment, there are students right now all over the world, the 11 students who are a part of the class, ranging from Jonathan, who's helping a design high school in the Bay Area, to Toph in Spain, who's helping an ad agency, to Nicole, who just finished a 3-month stint learning how to code with Dev Bootcamp and is doing a campaign for them on the back end of what it's like to go through that program. And we didn't place those students there necessarily. We have a whole suite of host companies, but if we just walked them to the front door of the company, that would ruin much of the experience. It would cheapen it in some ways. Instead, we try to give them the tools, the community, and a process to find problems and talk about how they might be able to solve them. And doing so gives them agency about the ability to navigate kind of nebulous spaces. I think as we look at education and as we look at what's happening in the space, I think we try too hard to maybe give people what it is that we think they need to learn, as opposed to helping individuals get in the position where they're able to say, I want to learn that, and because I want to learn that, I'll figure out how to get there. Now, as we go through this season of building the school, I'm becoming insatiably curious about how to create this type of, or how to elevate this role of self-designed education. I think so much of education has been, who am I doing this for? And whether it's our parents, sometimes doing it just for the sake of future employment, rather than who am I doing this with? What am I sharing rather than what am I getting? And who will I become rather than how much will I make? I mean, my hope is that someday every company would leave a space at the table for a learner. And maybe more importantly, that everyone would see themselves as a learner throughout their lives, not just at a certain point. And that when you get to the position where there's a point of transition, as opposed to just kind of going to the typical norms, taking a step back and thinking about how you might make your own education, how you might design it. And that those who do, that route would be seen as a credible and transformative way for people to engage in learning, no matter where you come from, no matter how much you make, or what kind of socioeconomic background you come from. It won't be easy. There will be all kinds of time and energy that needs to be placed into such an idea. And sometimes things won't work. But to that, I say, oh, what a grand adventure.